boys. Welcome back to the GROUPEX Podcast for week 3. It is good to see your faces.
Great to see you as
Thanks,
well,
Tony.
Tony.
Mate, let's boys, let's do this. So last week we went through key 1 and key 2. This week, obviously, we're gonna knock on the door of key 3 and 4. So key 3 is motivate your team. So Sam, I'm going to throw this to you. Can you give us a bit of an overview, a top view of what this key is?
Well, I mean, what is motivation? Let's be honest. It's really something that, unfortunately, as much as we'd all love it to be there all the time, it's not always there. So, we know that we're in the business of results and motivation. That's really what group fitness is. And, Philip Mills said that a number of years ago, and it still rings true. But the thing is, who motivates the motivators? Yeah, that's our job as group fitness leaders and as club leaders. And so this is what this key is all about, is what are some ways that we can motivate our team to make sure that they are always on or as close to their A game as possible. We know life throws us a lot of curveballs throughout our time, and not every day is a good day. So it's really important that we have the ability to motivate our instructors, motivate our trainers to make sure that when they walk into class, they can leave as much of that at the door as possible and give our members the best experience, or our movers, or our patrons, whatever you call your members in your club.
Dan, what is it? Why do you think it's so important that we have our instructors motivated? Why do you think it lands so well with us that this is one of the keys that we need to talk about?
Yeah, look, I think it's really important to have your instructors motivated for the obvious benefit that it's going to bring to the club and to members of the class that they're delivering. Right, if you've got a demotivated instructor or a demotivated group exercise department, then you're probably not going to be able to get the best out of them to deliver a class to their members, to engage with the broader team within the club. So I think motivation is super important. I think it's really important too to recognise that motivation is sort of everyone aligned to the same goal, but different people have different ways that they are motivated, or different people have different there are different ways you can incentivize people, and not everyone is motivated by the same thing. So not just it's obviously critical that your whole team is motivated, but as a group fitness manager, GROUPEX manager, or club manager, whatever your position is within the business, to make sure that you understand the individual you're trying to motivate, and the best way to motivate that individual. So,
okay, let me ask this question. How do we motivate a group of, let's say you've got 20 or 30, maybe even got 70 people, 70 instructors on your timetable. How do you motivate 70 instructors? What do we need to do in order to get these guys all beating the same drum? Sam?
Well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? What do we actually do with this
group
of individuals to keep them moving? And yeah, great question. I understand why you asked it. I probably think from a top level, it's the first thing you got to do. It's just like connecting with a class. You have to connect with your team and understand what actually motivates them, and know what type of person they are and where they come from, what their why is. So there's a number of factors. I think to start with, having a really good understanding of who's who in the zoo, as they say, because there's, as Dan said, there's so many different ways that people are motivated. So I guess the first step really is knowing and understanding who's on your team, knowing what sort of things that they bring to the table, and that all comes from conversations. You sort of can't. It's really difficult to get to know someone over like a text medium. So say, for example, SMS or email. It's really getting to know who's in your team.
What's the best way? I mean, you've said conversations, that kind of stuff. Dan, what's the best way that you have in the past when you're a GROUPEX manager, been able to understand who's in your team? What are some of the skills you've got, or some of the ways you've done it in the past?
Yeah. You've got to have conversations, as Sam just alluded to, and not conversations over text message or conversations over email. You've got to actually sit down with your team members, understand what makes them tick. Like there's a whole there's a whole series we could do on disc profiling and understanding, the different personality traits and types that there are out there, and understanding what what their inherent needs and desires are in terms of drawing out that level of motivation. Like what is it that the individual is looking for to get out of their role as a group fitness instructor, or whatever the role might be? What are they trying to achieve out of their role there, and how can we motivate them to achieve that, but also aligning with the club goals too? So I think, for me, sitting down, having conversations with each individual instructor, and then setting some clear goals, like, as a team or as a department, what is our goal? Is it to engage more members to group fitness? Is it to see a high occupancy in the room? Whatever it might be. Is there a particular program that we want to focus on this month? Whatever it might be, taking those team members along on that journey, understanding what the department or the club goal or goals might be, and then setting some individual goals for that instructor. How can you participate? How can you be involved? How can you add value to the team goals, the broader team goals?
Yep. So let me throw a cat amongst the pigeons here. Then we've got a team of, as I said, let's just say there's 70 odd instructors. I think most clubs would have somewhere between 30 to 70. I could be completely wrong, but going back in the day, how do you get in front of every single person? Yeah, I'm a GROUPEX manager, and I'm doing, as we spoke about last week, I've only got 15 to 20 hours per week that I've got to manage this whole department. How do I find time, or how do I actually get in front of every single instructor that I have to make sure I'm having quality, decent conversation, knowing that you try and organise a team meeting, everyone be here on a certain day, a certain time. Because the way the demographic is these days, instructors aren't full-time anymore and they're working. It's all a part-time thing. What's the best advice you can give us? And Sam, I'll throw this one to you. What's the best advice you can give us to try and get that message across to everyone? Or how should I go about trying to have a chat to everyone on my team?
I think if you start by thinking that you've got 70 people to connect with, that will make it very difficult for you, the task. So I think from a starting point, it's really setting yourself a clear action plan of how you want to break this down. So potentially you might consider, if you've got, say, 15 hours in the week, how many hours of those do you want to dedicate to getting to know your team? And particularly if you are new to a club, the most important thing to start with is to understand the club. And one of the best ways you can do that is by having conversations with your group fitness instructors to see what exactly is happening. Once you've kind of set your action plan as to who you want to see and when you kind of want to see them, yes, we are sort of all busy and people have different priorities, and for some people, group fitness is something they do as a for lack of a better term, a side hustle or something around a full-time job. However, there is an opportunity there where they are teaching a class and they're in the club to actually see them in action, participate in their class. And then I guess you can see exactly what they're about. Most people, generally for most people, you will see exactly what type of person they are when they teach their class or when they interact with members. So you'd actually get a first-hand account of what they're about, and then have a small conversation with them after the class. That's as simple as it needs to be. So sort of to recap, break down your team. Who do you want to connect with? When do you want to connect with them?
Yep.
Secondly, find those opportunities, whether it's, hey, let's go and have a coffee. Before your next class, let's have a bit of a chat. Or I'd love to come participate in your next workout. Can we have a quick chat after the class? I think when we talk about communication, that element is also really important too, particularly as a new leader, to actually communicate that you're going to be coming in to have a conversation with them, and it's just to get to know them.
Yeah.
Because you can imagine brand new GFM or group fitness manager or club manager they've never been exposed to before turns up to the class. To be honest, I'd certainly be trying to put on a show to make sure that I was doing the right things, and maybe there'd be some apprehension there that, what's the purpose of this? So I think when we're talking about communication, sometimes pre-communication is also important. Would you add anything to that, Dan?
Yeah, well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think we come back to that elephant we had in the second episode, right? How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? So breaking it down into little bite-sized pieces. Don't look at, geez, I've got to get around to 70 people, but set some realistic goals to get round and have those conversations with your instructors, get to know them, introduce yourself, so they get to know you as well. It's really important. It's not just a one-way thing. It's two-directional. The other thing I would touch on too, in terms of organising staff training and staff meetings, and that we used to have in a position I was in previously, we used to try to have 3 to 6 monthly catch-ups as a team. And you're 100% right. There's always someone that's got to start work early or got to finish work late, can't quite make it, or you can't get. It's very, very difficult nowadays to get every single person into the room to sit down and have a conversation for an hour. But what I started to do was film the meetings. So people that weren't able to attend live,
Yep.
I'd flick them the recording and say, hey, this is the conversation. This is the sort of thought processes that everyone had. Let me know what your feedback is. Give me some ideas, if it was planning a launch event or whatever it might have been, the topic of conversation was making sure everyone felt like they had a say in it, even if they couldn't get to the meeting live. They had an opportunity to review what was talked about and have input as well.
Matching the best gyms and studios with the best group exercise instructors. If you want to get your classes covered or want to teach more and earn more, simply let the Cover Me app do the work. No more WhatsApp groups and social media groups, no more chasing, only relevant, personalized notifications. Just check in at a club, an invoice will be automatically generated, ready for you to get paid. It takes just a couple of minutes to create a Cover Me professional profile. So, raise your profile and raise your game. Cover Me. Let's make it happen.
I like that idea. I think that the recording that meeting is good. One, it keeps people accountable as well, but it also gives you a record of what you're speaking about. The other thing that I wanted to touch on there was, as a GROUPEX manager, I think we need to be a bit flexible as well. If you have one instructor that can only teach and he's only in your club at 4:30 on a Sunday afternoon, you may need to get in there at 4:30 or 5 o'clock or whenever you can to actually have a chat to them, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah, okay, it might be outside of your hours you've got to do, but if your team is there and they need you and you need to be on firing on all cylinders and make sure that everything's okay, I think that's an additional thing to, just to be that little bit more proactive around what you're doing to make sure you get across to everyone in the team. It's also going to give that instructor who only teaches that weekend class at 4:30, or as an example, this is an example, but whenever it may be, gives them some love that they may not be getting from any other GROUPEX manager that's out there. You've made the effort to, one, go and participate in their class, but two, spend that 5 or 10 minutes after their class with them to have a chat. And what I would say to GROUPEX managers is, if you're going to have a chat to an instructor, don't do it before their class. Do it after. Yep. Yeah, I think as Sam, you sort of mentioned to that earlier on, that if a GROUPEX manager rocked up and you weren't sure why they were coming and all of a sudden they're in your class, you do the whole, oh, okay, right, what? Yeah, cool. Yeah, okay, you've just completely put me off. Let them know, as Sam said, but also have that conversation after class so that they're prepared for their class, rock in, teach their class, and then their mind is completely free for that meeting afterwards as well.
Yeah, so, I think what I'd say just to build on that as well is that with your time as a group fitness manager. So I've kind of been on both sides of the fence, right? So I've been a group fitness manager and I've also been a club manager, and I really, as a club manager, I was always really strong on allowing the group fitness manager to have a little bit of autonomy in terms of not, sort of doing anything you want at any time of the day, but just being flexible to give you the opportunity to actually spend some of your hours outside that block. So I think it's a really great conversation to have with if you're a group fitness manager or even a club manager, just discussing with your manager where those opportunities are to see someone potentially outside your hours, and how you can be a bit flexible with the times that you work so that you can, because I mean, never underestimate the value that one interaction with that one team member on the weekend could have. You know, think of that as a motivational point. My manager was kind enough to give up, 40 minutes, an hour of their time on their Sunday. We use the Sunday as an example, to come into my class and spend some time with me. Now, that in itself is motivating, right? That just shows that respect and care. And people won't care what you know until they know how much you care. So that's a really important thing to remember as well.
Yeah. So true. So how do we motivate our team? Dan, you touched on a few of them before. First one you mentioned too was like setting goals. When we're talking about setting goals, are we talking about like we were in the last episode about targets and that kind of stuff? Or give us some information around when you say setting goals, what you're actually referring to.
So it can be, talking about, okay, what are we trying to achieve as a team, and then breaking it down into individual team goals. So, okay, perhaps we're working towards, we want 5,000 group fitness attendances for the next month. Okay, that's a big, hairy goal. We had 4,500. We want to grow that by 500 for next month. How are we going to do that? Sitting down, having conversations with your instructors and understanding this is what we're trying to achieve. This is the goal that we're trying to get to. It basically means, if you said we want to grow by 500 attendances for the month, that's a big number. Like that's a big number. But then sitting down, breaking it down, okay, we've got 100 classes on the timetable a week. There's roughly, for the sake of the argument, 4 weeks in the month, 400 extra classes. What does that work out to be? There's 1.2 visits per week, 1.2 visits per class extra or attendances per class extra. So you break it down like that, and then you can say, okay, so you've got, you're teaching this, and this class. Can we get one more person into, and how can we support you to get that one extra person? And then obviously, after the goal setting side of things, it's really important. There's some non-financial and financial incentives to motivate your team. So once the goals are set and the goals are hopefully achieved by the team, it's important to follow up with well done, some kudos to the team members that were involved and played their part. And I think something that's really important, that if you're sending out, whether it's an email or a Teams message or a Facebook message or whatever it might be to commend your team and congratulate them, don't then wrap that really positive message up with a heap of email crap to admin stuff on top of that, right? If it's a congratulatory email or text message, whatever it might be, Teams message, congratulate everyone, let them know they've done a great job, give them a chance to enjoy that, savor that, take that feedback on board and appreciate it, and then hit them with admin on another email or another through another medium. Don't sort of try to wrap it all up as one, because you suddenly take the polish right off that. Well done, Tony. You grew your team, you grew your class by 3 members in the last month. Awesome job. Oh, and by the way, can you make sure you get your covers filled and do this, and this? Don't do that. Really make sure that if it's an admin email or an admin message, that's fine.
Yep.
But don't get it mixed up with congratulatory, those non-financial incentive sort of motivation, thanks, kudos type stuff as well.
Yeah. How do we deal with those instructors that know it all, that, I just rock up, I teach, I go. That's all I do. That's all I'm paid to do. How do you motivate that person that just wants to do the bare minimum and bare basics? Sam, can I throw that one to you? And I know it's a curly one.
I see Dan's just smiling as you said, Sam. It's really interesting.
I've got some thoughts on this one too.
Yeah, and it's really interesting dealing with a number of personalities in your team as well, and a number of motivations. You've got, if we break down motivation to a really basic level, you've got intrinsic motivation and you've got extrinsic motivation. So in Les Mills, when we talk about intrinsic and extrinsic, it's slightly different. It's from a coaching sense, but from an actual motivational sense, people are either, they're self-motivated, so they're quite happy to, perform at the highest level, and they're motivated by the inside. And then there's external motivation. So that's sort of external to them. So things like incentives and, as a GFM, asking for their buy-in, etc. And we kind of float between in intrinsic and extrinsic, as we go along the journey. Sometimes we're not very self-motivated, so we need that little bit of extra kick. Sometimes we're really self-motivated, and I guess the extrinsic helps support us on our journey. Now, with someone who might, as you say, want to just do the bare basics, I think it would be understanding sort of where they're coming from and what might be going on for them, because potentially they might not be motivated because of another factor that's not related to yourself and the club. So
Yep.
I think taking the time, we sort of spoke a bit about conversations, just taking the time to just have a chat with them and just an open conversation. How's things going for you? What's your focus in your classes at the moment? Because there may be something that you could potentially help them with if it's inside the gym, or provide them with some support if it's external. As I said before, we all have things that crop up in the background, and one thing we were always big supporters of in the clubs that I've worked with is providing instructors with support and staff with support. So things like mental health services and things like that, just so they've got someone external to you to talk to, because potentially it's something you might not be qualified to speak to them about. So I guess there's that element. If it's not related to that, then you might go along the route of finding different ways to get them fired back up, because like I said before, some of us need a bit of a kick. Some of us need something to focus on. I can think of times where I was not motivated and I needed someone just to come along and maybe take the blinders off for me and make me realize actually maybe I'm in a bit of a slump, and how do I get back on the horse and back into a place where I really am keen to perform.
This is the GROUPEX Podcast.
Yeah. I think that when we're talking about setting goals there as well, I think the goals can also be related to that person individually as well, not so much what's happening in the business. But I teach three different programs. This year I want to try and upskill myself, or I want to go and do an advanced training, or I want to take on a new program or something like that. I think having that goal set conversation with the instructors as well, and stuff you write down and keep for yourself, but you're obviously working with that person, can also be a motivator, because if they can see that you are interested in them as a person, not just your instructor 7156 who teaches Tuesday night at 5:30, you're going to give something a little bit more back to them as well. And I think in a way that sort of leads on to where we're talking about incentives before, you're sort of incentivizing them to help them do something and further their career in what they're doing as well. But if we can, I want to chat on the incentives, the non-financial and financial incentives. Dan, and I'll throw this over to you if we can. Can you give us some examples of incentives, both non-financial and financial, and what, as a GROUPEX manager, we should be looking to pass on to our teams?
Yep, absolutely. So we already touched on one of those non-financial incentives, which is just some give some compliments, some praise, some well done, pat on the back sort of team message or something along those lines. It costs nothing. It takes a couple of minutes of your day to write a good news message and let your team know they've done a great job, or such and such. And it doesn't have to be work related. You're 100% right. The goal focus is often around numbers and things like that, but there might be a totally separate individual goal that someone's working. They might be training to run a marathon, or they might be training to hike Mount Kilimanjaro. I don't know. They could be doing any of these things, which is, again, you're not going to know about if you're not having the conversation, to Sam's point originally. But then but following up with those guys, such and such did just ran their first marathon or their 10th marathon or whatever it might be. It might not be a physical thing. It might be something totally unrelated. Such and such went and, volunteered to do some charity work. There's so many things, so much good people are doing all the time that, it's quite easy to provide that little bit of, credit where credit's due, or pat on the back for a job well done, whether it's related to their work output or whether it's related to their personal, goal that they've set for themselves. So I think there's a couple of examples of really simple, non-financial incentives that you can look at.
Yep.
That are very quick, very easy, but do require you to have a pretty good knowledge of your team and what they're actually doing, and be having those regular conversations, where they're headed. And
So,
then sorry,
go
ahead.
I just want to interrupt. So, as an example, I'm GROUPEX manager. You're one of my instructors teaching. If I came into your class to let your members know, or your participants know, that you've achieved something, and celebrate that, is that will we class that as an incentive, or something that I could actually praising you in front of those people? Does that work? Do you think that would be something that as an instructor you'd be happy with? You'd be going, oh, well, yeah, okay, thanks. My manager's just come in front of all these people that are here to say, you know what, well done. Does that work these days, or is that am I just talking from the dinosaur days, thing of the past?
No, I think I personally wouldn't like it. And again, this is where it's important to know what makes your individual instructor tick. I wouldn't like to be put up on a pedestal or have that sort of good, bad, or indifferent pointed out in front of a big group, because that's just not me personally. A quick message, say, hey, well done, or whatever. That's all I would need. It doesn't need to be a big thing in lights, but absolutely, I think that's an awesome way. Go in and congratulate people. Let if it's the right person you're doing it for, absolutely jumping in just before the class and giving them a pat on the back for whatever their insert achievement here. It can absolutely be. And sometimes that's all. This is the thing. We talk about all these incentives, and people immediately think, well, I don't want to have to pay more. I don't have money to. I don't. It can be as simple as just giving, a little bit of credit where credit's due, spending some time, doing these sort of things, these sort of community events or whatever it might be, having these conversations with your members, and that such and such went and did that. That could be all the recognition or all the acknowledgement that instructors need. Now, there'd be obviously another group of instructors saying, well, yeah, that's lovely, but, pay me more for doing a good job. And that's where we start to get into the financial incentive. It is important. It's an important conversation. It's part of, the previous key play around, paying your instructors based on performance. So it comes back to, righto, again, let's set some goals. And then we talk about what the financial incentive might be for achieving those goals. Now, is that paying someone for a higher rate for their classes if they achieve goal X, or is it sending them to an advanced training or a workshop, or there's so many different incentives financially that you can provide that will provide, and I think looking at how do we provide a great financial incentive to the instructor, but ideally just get the club to get something out of that financial incentive too. So it might be Sam wants to go and do his Les Mills dance training. I can see Sam teaching a bit of Les Mills dance. He wants to go and do his Les Mills dance training. He's doing an awesome job. There he goes. Look at him. He's got all the moves. He wants to get, he's doing a great job teaching his RPM and sprint classes and pump and whatever else he's teaching. Okay, we want to send you to that initial training, and we want to pay for it, or we want to cover the cost, share the cost, whatever it might be. There's an example of a financial incentive. The instructor's paying less for the training, or potentially nothing for their training. They feel supported, and the club is getting a little bit out of it too, because they're going to end up with a great Les Mills dance instructor at the end of it. So that's another example of and the same could apply to advanced training, or whatever it might be, or it could be as simple as coffee cards. Incentivize your team with little things. We're not talking hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of cost to a club's bottom line. We're talking, you can give some coffee cards out to your instructors for a job well done. It's costing you, what's that costing you? Next to nothing to go and get a couple of free coffees or a muffin or something. They don't have to be big things, but something that recognises your team for the work that they've done and the effort they've put in.
No, I like that. I think the thing that was ringing through to my head then was also that I remember back in the days in North Sydney, that whenever we had an open day and we actually got new people coming in, if there were new people that came in and signed up because of a class that I was teaching or because of the effort that I'd put in some way, we were incentivized in some way. And as you're saying, it was coffee card or whatever it may have been. I remember that sort of happening. It was almost the Les Mills quarterly launches that we did, we had a big open day, and if we gave out refer a friend cards and that kind of stuff, and your details are written on the back, and that was handed in at reception or handed in to the sales guys, you actually got kudos for it, and you actually got something in return. So I think that's you're saying there. It's an incentive that is financial in a way, but also not. So it sort of crosses over both ways, that you're getting that recognition, that you also get something in the other end of it as well.
Yep.
This is the GROUPEX Podcast.
What about building team spirit? What's the best way of trying to get teams to lift morale? We've spoken about the one-on-one side of things, but what about, can we get them all together to go out and do an event or something like that? What have you guys experienced in the past? Sam, I'll pass that one over to you.
Yeah, and I think all of this stuff, if you really think about it, I like to use analogies. Think about it like a flywheel. Like when you're trying to move a flywheel, initially it's quite heavy, but once you actually get it moving, once you've set the goals, you've created that bit of a foundation. That's where you can get things moving and keep them moving. So things like those incentives Dan just talk about. That really is the sort of one-on-one level. So if you zoom out to the team, to keep the team motivated, to keep the morale up, it's realistically, I think the first thing and the most important thing is just to be there for your team. I know that there's that saying that no news is good news, but if your team don't even see you or even hear from you, that's a really big challenge to be able to continue to keep that morale up. You can do things like team building events. So it could be something as simple as, hey guys, let's just all get on our favorite thing, Zoom, and just do some sort of team game. Like it could be, I know that when I used to work as a club manager, we had a region, and basically we'd get the latest quiz out of the paper, and we'd all try and answer the questions right, and the winner would get something. We'd do events together like at our quarterly sales launches. So again, you could do a part of your quarterly launch, try and get as many of your instructors in as possible. The last quarterly launch I can remember that I was involved in was at Christmas time, and we did a Christmas theme, and we actually had the most amount of instructors that had ever turned up to one of these events, and we all got together and took a team photo. It was actually really cool to just see everyone involved, and if you weren't teaching a class, you'd be in the background. But again, that's based around the community that was created within that club. So, once you have gained the momentum and gained the trust of your team, it's doing those little things consistently. Not every day. It doesn't have to be let's jump on Zoom right now. Let's jump on Zoom tomorrow. It doesn't have to be every day, but maybe once a quarter, just setting that culture of we are a team, and we like to catch up.
Yeah. No.
The other thing, if I can add just quickly to that, Tony, because we've talked about all the positive side of the stuff you can do, and it's really important. I think it's important to always be as a manager to always be coming from that point of positivity and that point of being a coach or a mentor that cares. Yeah, it's super important having the conversations. But don't want to use the elephant analogy too much, but the elephant in the room here is the instructors that are underperforming. They've had performance reviews. You've had conversations with them. You can't get them motivated. For whatever reason, they're disenfranchised or they're demotivated. They're not interested. And again, this is something that you're not going to deduce over the course of one or two conversations. This is something that you're going to see over a longer term trend. And I think the single biggest thing in my view and my experience to creating a great team culture is making sure everyone is engaged in that culture and is it believes in it, really honestly believes from their heart in the culture and in what you're trying to achieve as a team. And the harsh reality of that is sometimes you're going to find the odd team member that perhaps isn't prepared to be part of that team pulling that flywheel, as Sam mentioned. And that's when you do have to make some tough, but some more difficult decisions. And as a group fitness, GROUPEX manager, club manager, sometimes you have to make those tough decisions that this person isn't the right fit for our team. Yep. And that leads to, to whatever it leads to. But I think that's probably the least glamorous part of management is having those really, really honest and tough conversations. But it's part of your job as a manager of leading teams, that you cannot get the best out of your team if you've got someone or a couple of people that are dragging on that team and not playing the part. So I think it's really important to acknowledge the great teamwork and the great team members that are part of your team, but also identify if there is any members that maybe aren't fitting that culture that you're trying to create, and perhaps having some tough conversations and making some tough decisions on the direction of those team members as well.
And I'd add on to that, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to have those tough conversations, because at the end of the day, if you're getting paid on targets and you've got a KPI to achieve from being the Group X manager, and you have people not toeing the line, you're just hurting yourself. Get rid of them. And I know that's a harsh thing to say, but if you've got an instructor that's not doing what you need them to do, and he's not on level of what you want them to be achieving, you need to flick him. You need to be able to go, ta-da. But obviously, don't just flick him. Go through the process of what you've got to do to make sure that you're not putting yourself into a bad situation at all. Make sure you do it correctly and do it through HR or whatever it may be that you've got to do to make sure you have the right people working for you. So you've got the right fit. Yeah,
and making sure you're giving that instructor the absolute benefit of the doubt, the maximum opportunity to get to the point that you need them to be at, right? This is not me coming in for a moment suggesting, right, that person's underperforming or they're not towing the line, get rid of them. That not at all. Give them the opportunity, and that's what we talk about, motivating your team. They might be demotivated for a variety of reasons that you can work with them on, but there is just, and it happens. I've seen it happen. I've been involved in it myself. There's just the odd time where no matter what you try, no matter the support mechanisms you put in place, you can't get to the point that you need to be with that team member, and you've got to be then prepared to make decisions based on the best interests, and that's ultimately what it's about, right? The best interests of the business you're representing and the best interest of the team that you're leading.
Totally. How do I motivate myself as a Group X manager? Now, I'm motivating the team. I'm doing a great job of getting my team motivated. What happens if I lose motivation? How am I getting my motivation? What should I be doing as a Group X manager to make sure that my cup is full and overflowing? Sam?
Well, again, that really comes down to the extrinsic versus intrinsic again, right? So if you're not intrinsically motivated, you're gonna need something extrinsic to help you out. And that's where I'd seek help from my club manager or my regional manager. But what I will say, from my position, I've worked in high level management roles where you are working remote and you do need to stay pretty self-motivated. And I think sometimes when you do move higher, the cadence of contact with a line manager does decrease. So I guess I can just provide some examples of ways that I've stayed motivated. Firstly, setting myself a goal as to what I want to achieve in my department. And really that's based on me doing some evaluation of where we're at as a team, where we're at as a department, to be able to direct, I guess, where I want to take it. Secondly, holding myself accountable to those goals, but also sharing them. What I find for myself is when I share a goal with someone else, it's almost like I'm a little bit accountable to them now because I've told them this is what I'm going to do, So, hey, I might even have a conversation with, let's use my current role. Maybe I have a conversation with Dan and say, Dan, this is what I want to achieve this month, this quarter. The next time that I speak to Dan, he's probably going to go, hey, Sam, how are you going with that goal? So that's, again, finding ways. You kind of sometimes, if you can't find motivation from, if you can't find ways to stay motivated from a leader, sometimes leaning on your peers is a really good thing to do as well. And, maybe then it becomes a little bit two-way. Maybe I give Dan my goal and he gives me his goal and then we work together. As I said at the start, motivation is sometimes there and it's sometimes not. It's really discipline that gets you through, and discipline is what's gotten me through in my career, in my life, just staying the course and trusting the process. It's a really cliche thing, but sometimes you just have to trust the process and know that it will be okay. You are going to have bad days. You are going to have days when you're not motivated, and it's okay, but just keep putting the work in.
matching the best gyms and studios with the best group exercise instructors. If you want to get your classes covered or want to teach more and earn more, simply let the Cover Me app do the work. No more WhatsApp groups and social media groups, no more chasing, only relevant, personalized notifications. Just check in at a club, an invoice will be automatically generated, ready for you to get paid. It takes just a couple of minutes to create a Cover Me professional profile. So, raise your profile and raise your game. Cover Me. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. It's I've enjoyed chatting to you guys in relation to this because what it's giving me, and I suppose it's the statement more than a question I'm going to ask now, is there is a hell of a lot more to GroupEX management rather than just finding covers and updating a timetable. From what we've spoken about from the first two keys, plus again with this one now, there's a hell of a lot more going on there than just, oh yeah, I can't teach tomorrow if I'm your cover, or oh, I've got to put in those numbers in the database. Oh, I'm doing the pays. Yeah, there is a truckload more with that. So for me, it's I suppose it's that gang, those of you that are listening, open your eyes a little bit more to see really what the role is, because if we get GroupEX firing on all cylinders properly, and I've said that statement a couple of times this last week, I've heard myself say it, but if it's firing on all cylinders, your job becomes easy. Yeah, if everyone on your team is motivated, everyone on your team is doing what they've got to do, it makes your job a hell of a lot easier. So let's put that one to the side and remind people that, we aren't going into all detail. We're just going to be sort of doing top level here. But guys, if you want to know more, remember it's the online GFM that Les Mills have available that you can jump on to do. But the next key, so key number 4, is develop a great training program. Now, this has changed quite a fair bit to when I delivered the Group Fitness Management Seminar years ago. Dan, I'm going to start with you on this one. Can you give us an overview on what develop a great training program means? Are we talking about I've got to go out there as a GXM and design a new program called Tony's Fitness, or what are we talking about?
No, you definitely don't need to do that because Les Mills has got you covered. No, developing a great training program is really just sitting down, looking at your current your current team's training cadence, who's trained in what and where the shortfalls are in that training as well. Like, is there some upskilling that needs to be done by certain members of your team, or can you do some upskilling of your own? Identifying the core skills and then creating that training journey, that calendar of diarising how we're creating this training program. What are the pieces of essentially putting pieces of a puzzle together to get to a situation where you've got a really well-trained team, you've got an awesome, hopefully an awesome group fitness training program, a timetable, and making sure that you're identifying shortcomings in your instructor team in terms of their training, in terms of the training that you might need yourself to put together the best department and the best program that you possibly can.
Yep. So in essence, I'll put it in Tony's words, we've almost got a roadmap on what we're doing within that area of educating and upskilling our trainers, our instructors that are on board. Now, Sam, I'll throw this at you because it's obviously having the trainer background that you've got with Les Mills here as well. Is there a right or wrong way for this to happen? Is there a right or wrong path, or is it just like, point them in the right direction and give them a bit of a pat on the back? I was going to say kicking the arse then, but no, let's give them a bit of a pat to go, guys. Yep, off you go. How do we implement it? And I suppose what's the first step?
I'd like to say there's no right or wrong, but there definitely is a wrong way to go about this. Particularly, and let's use a wildly probably made up example. I hope this would never happen, but let's say as a group fitness leader, you walk into a class and you see that there's some opportunities for this person to develop, and you just zone in on the things they need to do better, and you don't actually highlight the things they're doing really well. So it's interesting, some of these key plays, because they actually have a little bit of crossover sometimes as to, creating a great training program sometimes is motivating as well. So the first point of call is identifying the core skills of each instructor so that you know actually what to do with this training plan. Because you could have the best training plan in the world. You could be like, yeah, cool, I'm going to focus on, performance this quarter. However, there might be a little bit of a gap in motivation, through coaching, for example. So you really need to firstly identify the core skills of your team and where those gaps are so you can create that training program. So that's the first step. Find out what's actually going on in your club. Develop your program, and then the next step is to actually step back and go, okay, what experience do my instructors have? You will have instructors that will know exactly what they need to work on because they've got the experience behind them to not just have to be able to focus on, for example, with Les Mills, the 5 key elements, or in a freestyle program, it might be whatever makes up creating a great class experience for their participants within that program. They might have the self-awareness to actually be able to self-direct, and you can have more of a coaching conversation. You're going to also have instructors that might be newer that will need a little bit of extra help. So it might be more of a direct feedback process. So you might use something like the sandwich method. You're doing this really well. Now it's time to focus on this, and that will help you achieve, X, Y, Z, and wrap it up like that. So identify their skills, move down to working out what type of instructor they are, and then you can roll out your action plan and have those great conversations. We have some great tools that we utilize, and this is in the online Group Fitness Manager course. We have an actual method that you can use to give people motivating feedback. So feedback is already quite daunting for some people, but if you deliver it in a motivational way and from a point of respect and care, you actually can get sometimes difficult feedback to deliver to land really well. So there's some different methods that you can utilize. But there's certainly some great examples of coaching books you can read or audio books you can listen to that will give you some methods and some ideas about coaching. I certainly, with coaching myself, I'm always trying to find different ways of doing it, and there are so many different angles with coaching. But it's definitely you never know everything. I think in anything, you can always learn something from someone. So definitely, if you're not sure of how to coach and what to do, you can reach out to us, or do a bit of a Google search and see what's actually out there.
Okay, so we're going to have a look at individual core skills that an instructor has. How do I do that? Do I have to go and assess them? Do I just sit down and have a conversation with them? And I know that probably sounds a silly question, but I want to break it right down for those that are brand new to coming into GroupEX management. If we look at the 5 key skills or the 5 key elements of a group exercise instructor, is that what I need to be looking at to make sure that I can see where they need help with what we're talking about here? Dan, I'll ask you that one.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect place to start, right? I think identifying, as Sam said, the stuff that they're doing really, really well now, which is the stuff that obviously in park, you don't need to work on that. You're doing a great job there. But these are the couple of little tidbits or ideas that, that I think could improve your class, and the result will be greater connection with your member. It might be, getting your members to move in a stronger way, whatever the particular area is that you'd like that instructor to focus on. And then obviously beyond that, making sure that once you've had that initial conversation, you've done that initial identification of the core skills and the areas that need work, then that you're constantly supporting that instructor through assessment and coaching. Now, when I was in the club management, group fitness management roles, I didn't know everything about everything. So I needed to, an example I'll give, I teach a lot of cycle classes and Les Mills core, right? That's my wheelhouse. If it came to attack, now I've participated in attack to not critical acclaim, but to a level. I am probably, to be fair, identifying your own shortcomings. So what did I need to do? So I need to understand the program a little bit better, so I can at the very least talk, competently with my instructors that were attack instructors, as an example. But then you don't necessarily have to be there holding an instructor's hand the whole way through that process. This is where mentor instructors come into play, right? So I had some great attack instructors and great pump instructors, and I would ask those guys, would you mind supporting this potentially a more junior, or may not be a more junior member, but this person, we've identified a couple of things that between us we would like to work on to get them to the next level. Would you mind supporting them? And that, whether that meant them going to that mentor instructor going to that person's class and giving them some feedback after class, maybe getting that instructor to jump up on stage and do some team teaching and stuff like that, just to get a feel for what's going on. So again, don't be scared. You don't have to be an expert in every single program and every single part of group fitness, but you will invariably have people within your team. If you've got a great team already, you will have people in your team that probably are experts or very, very competent people that can provide some further support to what you're trying to achieve with your instructors, which is that mentoring and that ongoing assessment and coaching.
So I'll just get this clear in my head. I don't need to have done 500 hours of yoga training in order to go and assess someone doing yoga, is what I picked up from you then. Or I don't need to have trained in Les Mills dance because it's only a brand new program. I have no idea what it is yet. I haven't seen it. I can still go and assess someone that's teaching that class because I can still give them feedback on what I saw was safe and effective and things that I think they may be able to improve on, or, as you're saying, get somebody else that is a trainer in that program or has been delivering that program for quite some time and feels confident to be able to pass on some feedback to be able to help me as a Group X manager to do that kind of stuff. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that's exactly right. You don't have to be an instructor in every single program across every single discipline to give feedback. I mean, as a group fitness or Group X manager, you will know what a safe and effective class looks like. So you don't have to be an expert in every single program and product. However, you do have to have a good sound base knowledge of every program and every product, so you can deliver feedback based on this is what the expectation of this program should look like and should feel like. Did instructor XYZ hit that mark or not? So you can't go in there blind and have no idea what the program is and be expected to be able to give feedback, and B, more importantly, be expected for that instructor you're giving the feedback to take any interest or notice of you, because if they don't believe you know what you're talking about, you've got no credibility to be in there. So you need to have a good base understanding of the programming, but you don't have to be in there teaching it. And as I said, leverage off your team, leverage off your senior instructors, your team leaders, if you've got team leaders in different programs, leverage off their understanding, their knowledge, their intimate knowledge of the program to support you in that process.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, because that I think that's the one thing I remember is, yes, I was trained in my programs, but giving someone feedback on a program I wasn't trained in was very daunting. In most, and I'd say probably 9 times out of 10, that person would turn around and go, yeah, whatever. How would you know? And that's can be very, very confronting for a Group X manager. But I think the downfall back then, and we touched on it earlier here, is have those conversations. If you know your team and you know that person you need to assess is not going to take any bit of feedback from you, you need to find someone else that's going to be able to work with you to give that person feedback. So whether it's peers or whatever it may be, you need to find that thing that's going to work and gel with that person, so that person can see, as a Group X manager, you've gone above and beyond to invest your time in them, which is part of their goals as well, to assess them and give them some feedback. I mean, there's feedback and there's feedback. Yeah, and I think there's been many podcasts where I've chatted to people, we've touched on the feedback as a topic, and you've got to learn how to accept feedback, but you've also got to learn how to deliver feedback in any role that we do, whether it's an instructor, whether it's a manager, whether it's a leader, whatever it may be. Feedback is feedback, and there's different ways for it all to come through. So I like that is part of this journey that we've set up for instructors and stuff to actually go through.
This is the GROUPEX Podcast.
What's the I suppose, self-assessment, for an instructor, if they're looking to improve what they're doing, or they're looking at part of this training program, what's the best way for an instructor to do some self-assessment? Sam, I'll throw that onto you.
So the first step to self-assessing is just putting this thing in the corner, turning it on and forgetting about it. And then going back and actually watching yourself back and almost assessing yourself against the criteria of whatever it takes to be an instructor in the program that you're trained in. So, if you're trained in one of our Les Mills programs, we have the 5 key elements, which within each key element, there will be things that you can look to work on. But also when you watch it back, I think the key thing, right, is, and I have this conversation quite frequently at training modules, is because the first thing when you watch yourself on video, what are the things you think? Oh, I hate the way my voice sounds. I don't like the top that I'm wearing today. Why did I say that? You really have to be the director and the actor at the same time. So there's lots of examples where people talk about being the director and the actor. And if you jump on YouTube, you'll definitely find something. I think the person who writes Family Guy, he also directed and acted in a movie. It's about the West or something. Anyway, he talks about this on a talk show, and they're like, "How did you do it?" And he said, "I just had to step back and pretend that I was actually giving feedback to someone else." That's kind of in a nutshell what he sort of spoke about. And that's what you have to do when you self-assess. Watch it back as if you're giving feedback to a good friend. You wouldn't say to a good mate, "Oh, geez, your voice sounds really annoying today," or "Geez, I don't like what you're wearing today." You just wouldn't say that. So you've just got to be kind to yourself. And then from there, think about the experience for your participants. Watch it back. Did you provide a great experience for your participants? Do you look like you know your choreography? Or maybe do you look like you're sort of thinking about it every now and then? What does your technique look like? Does it fit the program that you're role modeling? With coaching, are you actually coaching to the room, or are you instructing? There's a difference between coaching and instructing, isn't there? Instructing, I'm giving instructions. Coaching or leadership is really who's in front of me and what do they need? That's where the best coaching comes from, actually coaching to who's in the room. With connection, am I giving people eye contact, or is my eye contact just looking up, looking at them and not actually at them? And then in terms of performance, am I creating a really entertaining experience for our participants? Because, like I said a couple of episodes ago, exercise isn't the funnest thing for some people, but why not make it a fun experience? Why not have a laugh with them in the class?
So how's this an idea though? Is it a good idea for a GROUPEX manager to film an instructor and then sit back with them and actually watch it with that instructor? Now, if it's, I suppose what I'm getting at is that an additional way, or a way that we can actually give that instructor feedback? We're sitting there instead of being in the classroom with them, and they're going to be nervous. And like we spoke about right from the beginning, if a GROUPEX manager just happened to rock up, you're like, holy crap, what I've just, you screw up. You nerves, you've got all that happening. If they got a camera, put it in the side of the room, filmed it, and then actually sat down with the GROUPEX manager to actually go through it. Now, my understanding and my assumption here would be that the instructor is probably going to be more harsh on themselves than the GROUPEX manager would be when it comes time to feedback, because that instructor, as you just alluded to, is going to be, oh God, look at that, I don't like that, whatever it may be. They're going to have a different perspective than what the actual GROUPEX manager is looking for. And I think it to me would open up the conversation to allow the GROUPEX manager to look what they're looking for, to make sure that things are ticking the box to say, yeah, this is all good, but also allow the instructor to see things as well from a different angle, rather than them being up on stage doing it all and trying to remember what it was. There's that video of me actually doing that. Oh, wow, you know what? Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, maybe if I tried something different, that might give a different result with what it is. Do you think that works, or is that still something that's out there that we should be probably passing on to managers to do if they can? Dan?
No, definitely. Oh, sorry.
Look,
it definitely works.
Sorry, Sam, you go.
No. I was just going to say it definitely works. And I think you've just got to make sure that it's coming from the right place and they know about it. Sticking a camera in the corner and just going, oh, by the way, filmed your class today. That's probably not ideal. But Dan's got some thoughts on it too.
Yeah. I'd be inclined to actually get the instructor to take the filming, right? So rather than a GFM, a GXM going and sticking a camera up in the corner of the room, even if you do tell them, I mean, you could do it. Again, depending on the instructor, are they going to take that positively or negatively, and identifying the right people you can do that with. But the people that perhaps don't feel comfortable with that or feel like that's a bit, they're judgmental or anything like that, probably the way I would approach it is, why don't you go and, as an instructor, pop your camera up in the corner of the room, take some footage, take a snippet of the class, 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll sit down afterwards together. It's on your phone, so I don't, I'm not disseminating anywhere. It's yours to look at and review and keep or discard at the end. But why don't we sit down at the end of the class, or when next time you've got 15 minutes to sit down, we'll have a look at it together and identify what you're doing really well and where you might want to improve. So again, you want to take your team along for the journey. You don't want to dictate. But in too many roles where you dictate, you must do this or you must do that. And that's part of management, part of leadership, but you need your team. If you've got a team that's working keep going back to working towards a common goal, that they will want to do this stuff. They will agree that, yes, this is something we need to do, I need to do, because it's going to help me grow, but it's also going to help the team in its overall goals. Yeah. So I think you want to empower your instructors to feel comfortable to stick a camera up and take some footage, and then sit down with you and perhaps that mentor, that mentor that you've been working with, and have a conversation. And again, it doesn't have to, it could be at a coffee shop, or it doesn't have to be sitting in a boardroom on a big screen looking at it and like play by play like the Super Bowl. It doesn't need to be like that. It can very much be, just a bit of a casual back and forth. What worked well, what didn't, that cue landed, you look great here, whatever feedback you feel is relevant to then to elicit that motivation that we're talking about, to motivate to yes, that's an area I'd like to work on. Yep. And there's the motivation, right? There's the goal. I want to fix it. I'm not doing that well. Yep. I want to be better at that. And by the end of the month, end of the year, whatever it might be. Yep.
Sam, as trainer, are we still? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. If I can just add as well, I think if you step back and think about all these things we're talking about, through all of it is trust, and trust is really important to have with your team. And have you guys ever seen the Simon Sinek talk, the Start With Why? You've seen that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you just go, we're going to assess you because we need to be better, that's really not a motivating way to approach it. Yep. So really, with any of this stuff, it's important they understand the why. Why are we doing this? Why are we here? And what actually is going to, why is this important in the big scheme of things? And I think the biggest thing with any fitness facility is to get people moving. We are unfortunately in one of the top countries in the world for health issues. And we know, like the three of us know, and I'm sure everyone listening at home would agree, that just getting moving is one of the easiest ways you can make a start to bettering your health and fitness. And we are motivating every week hundreds and thousands of people that will go on to motivate hundreds of thousands of people themselves. So we have this ability to have this really cool ripple effect of motivation throughout people's lives. So if I was a group fitness instructor and that was the reason why that we were assessing my class, so that I could create a better impact for my members, I would 100% feel really motivated to put that into action so I could give them a better experience. Because ultimately, I've taught a lot of trainings before, and when we talk about the why, it is always external. When an instructor says why they want to teach a class, it's always about the people in front of them. I mean, there's always a little bit in it for them. They want to teach for their own reasons, but something that always shines through is, I would love to help people like my instructor helped me. Like, what a cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah. What? So we've gone through. We're assessing. We're giving feedback. We're looking at all that kind of stuff. What do we then suggest that an instructor does for the next step? And I know that there's advanced training stuff as well. Is that something that you would recommend to all instructors? To do after a certain period of time to go, hey guys, go and do your advanced instructor because it's going to help you get to the next step. And how do I face the challenge of I don't want to?
Yeah, yes. The short answer is yes. You never, I think Sam's mentioned it before, you never know everything there is to know about anything, really. There's always something more that you can learn. So it doesn't matter how long you've been teaching a program, Les Mills, freestyle, aqua, whatever it might be. There's always something that you can do a little bit better, or something you can improve on, or something you can alter to make the class better in some way, or engage your members, in a different way. So yes, I think the fitness industry has got a lot better in the last number of years around that continuing education piece, right? So there's points available for continuing education. Now, whether that's going and doing an advanced training, for the programs you're teaching, or it's as simple as getting to a regular quarterly workshop. Like Les Mills run, every 3 months, every quarterly workshops around the country. So there's an opportunity. That's an education as much as it is just going and doing the new stuff and seeing it before everyone. You've got the ability to go and participate with a heap of like-minded members and instructors, being taught by the best instructors in Australia and across the world. Our trainer and presenter team is as good as any trainer and presenter team across the world. So you get the opportunity to go back, not have to think about choreography, not have to think about anything, just go and enjoy it, immerse yourself in the day, learn from the best people up on stage, and then take that back to your club and implement. If you could implement one little thing you picked up on, one really cool cue, or one really good way of connecting with your clientele, with your members, that you could then go and take back to a club and implement, it's worth it's worth the effort and the investment in your time to go and do that. And then beyond that, regularly filming. I know Sam will probably touch on it in the trainer space. You're encouraged to regularly film yourself teaching a class. So we all fall into habits, particularly if we've been teaching for a long while. We all fall into habits that we perhaps didn't realise. Like you might be saying something really, really repetitively, or you might be doing something technically that maybe you didn't realise you were doing, that you need to, if you're not filming yourself regularly, you're not going to pick that sort of thing up. So it's all about continuing education in some way, whether that's formal education through advanced training or another certification or whatever it might be, or if it's informal, like regularly self-assessing your work, going to other instructors' classes. I'm a big believer in, and I do it myself. I'll go and do an RPM class with another instructor. I'll go and do a pump class with another instructor, because you can pick up some really cool cues, some really good motivational pieces of information that you can knock off, right? You can rip them off and use that for your class. So why would you? That's education. That's advancing yourself in some way. It doesn't have to be super formal or super strict, but if you do a little bit of everything from time to time, you're always progressing. You're always continuing to evolve as an instructor.
What tools does Les Mills have to help us as GROUPEX managers with assessing? Are the forms, the assessment forms, still around? Are they still available for us to have access to? Sam?
Yeah, we have a coaching template type form and some resources that we offer GFMs to assist them with, and there is actually some stuff in the OGFM course as well, and essentially they are designed to be able to be used across a multitude of programs. So when we talk about the course online group fitness management is not just limited to group fitness managers, it is open for any of our clubs to be able to access, whether you're a GFM or club manager or regional manager. Anyone can learn the ability to manage a group fitness department. So we offer tools. We have the sort of a slight variation on the 5 key elements that people can use to assess their classes. So yeah, we do offer those tools as well.
This is the GROUPEX Podcast.
Okay, so I just want to wrap this one up with us so we can actually assess your instructor, give them some feedback on it. But let me ask you the question then, how much feedback is too much feedback? Dan?
Yes, you don't want to bombard an instructor or someone that you're giving feedback to. I would say 2 or 3 pieces of feedback is plenty. That's the formula I used to use when giving feedback to my instructors, to the staff that used to work with me. And similarly, I would pick 2 or 3 things that they're doing really, really well. Like, continue to work on these, but you're doing a great job. And these are strengths. These are your pillars that you can really hang your hat on and say you're nailing these. Whatever those 2 or 3 items are, then 2 or 3 items that that you might. You need to work on a little bit, that areas that perhaps by improving it, by doing this a little bit differently or saying this a little bit differently, you'll get a better engagement with your members or whatever the case might be. So I think it's really important to give. If for me, and again, identifying who you're talking to. For me, I would get feedback. You're doing this, and this. Well, I say great, don't care, because I'm only focused on what do I need to do to be better.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important that you give everyone the opportunity to say, okay, I'm doing this really well, so you can put that out in my mind. Because sometimes people are doing things that are really, really great and they don't realise they're doing them. Like, they're just doing them as a matter of course. So sometimes it's great to point out you're doing these things really well, because perhaps in their mind they're not doing those things well. So they've got all these things going on. I want to fix up this. And so pick 1 or 2, maybe 3 key things that you can really drill down on over the next period of time, and then set a bit of a realistic timeline for them as well. Like, sit down and say, right, well, these are the couple of things that we agreed you're going to work on in your classes. Let's put a time frame on that. So rather than, because goal setting is all, it's great, it's wonderful, but if you don't have a timeline, like we talked about it last week with the SMART goals, they've got to be measurable and done in a timely manner. So setting some goals and then setting some time frames to achieve those goals.
Yeah. Let me ask a question. And I'm a Group X manager at a club. I've got a brand new instructor that's come on board. I've sent them off to training. They've come back and, as I've heard before from Group X managers, we send them off to training. They've come back and they're still crap. Now, I know, most of us know that they're not going to come back an absolute gun instructor from doing a 2-day or a 3-day training course. What should I be doing with that instructor as a Group X manager? How do I set them up on this development training program pathway that we're going to be doing? And what's the best thing that I can actually offer them as a newbie to make sure that they are going to be supported and get the right help? Sam, can I pass that one to you?
Sure. I tend to recommend to give an instructor, like, once the instructor's done the training, they've become certified, you obviously want to have a really good action plan in place, because it doesn't matter whether they've passed with flying colours or maybe they needed some work. Everyone's going to need an action plan. It's not just the day of the training is done and then you're done. I can certainly remember training in some of my programs. So I've been on both sides of the coin, right? So I've certified in programs. I also had a time where I actually had to resubmit back in the day, a video to become certified. The trick is putting into place a strong action plan so that you can get where you want to be. There's no such thing as failure. There's opportunity. I like to use the word opportunity. I think language is important, particularly when you talk assessments. If there's something you need to work on, it's not you're crap at this. Here's an opportunity where you can develop your skills. And it's the same when people come out of that initial module training. What are the opportunities that we have now based on your current skills to be able to move you forward? So that's what I would recommend is to take the feedback that they've been given from their training provider. Or if they don't provide feedback, if it's just you pass the training or you don't, that's when you go into that assessment mindset of, cool, let's run me through a class. Do a sample class with the staff, or if you think they're ready to be in front of members, do it in front of members, and then go through that assessment process so then you can give them something to work towards. Because if you don't know where the finish line is, you're just going to keep running, and you're going to run and you're going to run and you're going to run, and you're never going to know when it's going to end. And at some point you will lose motivation. So that's where guidance becomes important.
Yeah. I like that. Sorry, go Dan.
I was just going to layer onto that too. Even pre the course, pre them going to their initial training or whatever the training is that they're doing, I think being realistic enough and having that conversation with them at the start, like this is the process, explaining the process and how it looks and the expectation from the club side. But we're not expecting you, and you shouldn't expect in yourself to come back and be a brilliant instructor from day one, which is why we have a mentoring process in place. So basically, and that does two things. One, it sets instructors who might be a bit nervous or feel like there's a big expectation on them to come back and just blow the doors off the class. It resets that expectation to be a little bit more realistic, but also it sets the tone of how you're going to approach their training and their movement forward once they come back. So you do hear it from time to time, instructors come back, right, I'm certified in this, I'm the best instructor in the world, give me all the classes and go. So I think it frames that part of the conversation too. So set some realistic expectations that the club has as to where you will be at post-training, but also some realistic expectations as to where we're going to direct you moving forward. We don't expect you, and you're not going to be the best instructor in the club. If you come back and you are, well, that's just a happy coincidence. You were born into it, and you'll probably be on the trainer presenter team at some point. But realistically, most people, it takes time. Yeah. So making sure you've had that conversation before they go away to their training, that there isn't this huge expectation on them coming back and be amazing right from day one, and also just bring those guys that maybe think they're going to come back and be amazing from day one, bring them back down into just a sort of a little bit of a reality check too.
I think there's also the opposite side of that is for the Group X managers as well, to have that realistic expectation that you've sent someone to training. They're not going to come back again. Yeah, you need to realize that. You need to be able to work with them while you're giving that instructor that bit of feedback and that guidance on what's going on as well. Knowing yourself that, unless that person's been teaching for a good period of time and it's just an additional program they're going to be picking up and they've already, been participating in it forever and whatever it may be, you've still got to make sure that you have the expectation of them coming back and going to need some assistance, going to need some help, because we all started somewhere. Every single one of us. We're not born into this, coming out of the womb, teaching on a bike, or coming out of the womb doing, tack or pump or whatever it may be. We've all had to learn, and we get experience as we go along. So a Group X manager saying to you guys now, nurture your team, but also instructors that are listening, nurture your colleagues, nurture your mates that are out there, your other instructors that are there with you at the same time. We're all on this journey together. So guys, those that are listening and those that are watching, please make sure you reach out to your Les Mills business relationship manager. If you're a brand new Group X manager to your club and you are running Les Mills programs, reach out to Les Mills head office. If you don't know who your business relationship manager is, get to know them. Organize it face to face, whatever it may be. Just reach out and I suppose ask for help if you're new, but also if you've been doing it for a while and you're feeling a bit flat, reach out, have those conversations again. I mean, these guys, Dan and Sam, are on the road, out there seeing you guys. So please reach out, work with each other. But also those clubs that don't have Les Mills, reach out. Yep, have a chat, get in contact. There's so much resources there that can help do what you're doing better. And Les Mills wouldn't be in the position they're in now if they hadn't done what they do in the clubs in New Zealand, where they're firing on all cylinders and they're doing it well. But there are some clubs as well out there in Les Mills land that aren't the best, but they then go and implement stuff. So reach out, help, have those conversations, as we've been saying, and hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll be able to improve what's going on. Boys, thank you so much for jumping on this one with us as well. We've got another couple of episodes coming up our sleeves. So for those that are engaged in what we're doing, please give us the thumbs up, like, comment, share, all of that kind of good stuff. The more people we can get talking about group exercise, the better. But boys, I'll see you two next week for a bit more action. Have a good one.
Thanks, Tony.